Hey, I've been thinking for a while um, about actually kind of sort of maybe somewhat revisiting that my last video I made about um, my testimony. And even though that video needed to be done, I thought it was important to voice it specifically because what I find is that somehow, maybe because the algorithm is always watching, observing you, me, everybody. You carry the phone, so it's observing what you do, what you like, what you watch, how you speak, whatnot. But there are things that I find that the conversations that take place, even between friends, like somebody you've known for a while, they never quite um, reach a human level. It's always about the weather, work, more work, and just the day-to-day stuff. And even though personally, like I may like to look at things that are conspiratorial per se, but still, like it's pretty difficult uh, to see what's going on with politics, celebrities, other questionable events, like the one from 6 years ago now. Yeah, my God, it's been 6 years. Anyway, nothing ever really gets discussed that I find personally, for me, curious. One of those things that I found it fascinating when I found out first, and I can't tell you when exactly it occurred to me or when I, read the article. But did you know that not every single person has that the voice inside their mind? It's your own voice inside your mind. Proper term for it is the inner monologue. I remember when I read it, and that's been maybe 7 years, maybe a bit longer. But anyway, I got my minor in psychology. I know, very useful. But anyway, so back then, I kind of knew it, but I never paid attention to it. I just thought maybe, architectural differences, like exactly like a computer. You know, there is Mac, there is Windows, there is Linux, all sorts of different Linuxes. Does it really matter? And that's a very, very tricky question to answer. Does it really matter? Kind of does, doesn't it? I mean, personally, for myself, whenever I approach a subject, especially a moral subject, should I do it? Should I not do it? That cookie that's been sitting there for a while, nobody seems to be want to take it, but it's not exactly mine. I didn't I didn't go buy it, but it's sitting there. Can I just take it? Um, is it moral to take it? It's not just about the cookies, though. There is a certain level of that kind of conversation that goes on, no matter the specific morally ambiguous decision that I'm about to make. So I find it very difficult for me how would I even, like, how do you make a choice? Like, how do you even decide on your actions if you don't have the discussion with your own self, with your other self? Well, maybe it's just the same you, but anyway, seems strange, seems weird. And then before you go to bed, before you close your eyes and actually fall asleep, do you not have a conversation with yourself about the day? Like, so and so said this. Well, what did they mean by that? Well, I answered this way. Was it the right thing to do, or should I have been nicer, kinder? So that's going on. And what I find extremely curious, and this is the most curious part, that every single person, like especially with a friend, if you just sit down and conversation goes and you directly ask, hey, do you talk to yourself in your own head? Every single person says yes. And it's suspicious, number one. First of all, the research shows that it's not true for everybody. And then, if you don't have the inner monologue, why wouldn't you simply say, I have no idea what you're talking about? That's crazy. You talk to yourself in your own head? Maybe you should go see a doctor. Seems reasonable, but it is interesting. It's almost as if the need to maintain the similarity between different humans, entities, like there's a directive. You have to maintain that you're exactly alike or similar enough. So they do. And if that's the case, then why is there no conversation that can take place? Like, for example, like the basic, when I say the word basic, I mean at the foundation, the beginning. No, they're basic. They're the base. Where everything else, like where your internal monologue begins. At least for myself, I remember as a child, at some point I asked myself the basic existential question: what am I? And it seems simple enough, right? What am I? Well, you're human. You're a child. You're a student. You're this. And of course, the first person I went to was my mom, my dad, my closest people that are around me, who were feeding me, protecting me, shielding me, housing me. Seems reasonable, right? And now that I'm older, I'm looking back and I'm wondering, well, my assumption that they knew was incorrect. I mean, clearly, you don't know it at first, like the younger you are, the more you assume and put your hope into that the adults around you will actually have reasonable questions, useful questions, like they can answer your question in a manner that actually carries the information you're seeking. But anyway, what am I? What is my purpose? How did I get here? I'm assuming you're also asking those same questions. I'm assuming everybody else is asking those same questions. And since we all like to pretend that we have the inner monologue, that we're all the same, we're all alike, what is your answer? What have you come up with? There are people, maybe not so much in power, but society is built in such a way, let's say teachers, like as a child, you look up to your teacher that, they have the position of power. So you ask them, and I did. And they tell you something like, well, you're a student, you can succeed being a student. Basically, they're not telling you what you are. They're giving you information that more like answers the question who you are or what you should be, how to exist in society, which is fine. I find that every piece of information found that way, it's valid. Some answers are more valid than the others, and they're useful, but they don't provide an answer that just silences the question. Like, you have a question, what am I? Here's the answer. You're done. Don't have to worry about it. And I mean, naturally, there is a desire. I mean, I would hope that there is a natural desire in everybody to find the answer. But I'm not so certain that that is the case. Because I find, like, it's not that I'm walking around asking everybody, the question. I'm socially adequately prepared. I know how to behave myself, and I know how to interact with people, which is fine. Like, on a day-to-day, doesn't really take away from me, doesn't really affect my life. But then when you do sit down across somebody on a table, like, not on a table, yeah, like, as if you're having coffee, or if you actually are having coffee, and then the conversation goes, because I personally like to direct the conversation towards the questions I would like answered, or if I don't have an answer and they don't have the answer, at least maybe we can compare notes, show each other our calculations. Personally, I find also that, like, it's these type of conversations. It's where it's quiet, it's personal, and there is something about speaking out things that you're thinking that makes those ideas more real. And like a two-dimensional concept, something like, I should always tell the truth. It sounds good to be an honest person. It sounds good. But then you like the concept, so you adopt it. You literally put it as a building block into the structure of your own self. And you think you know what it means. As in, what kind of weight it has, that concept, what kind of shape, smell, color, feelings associated with it, but you don't really have any idea, because the concept is very pliable. Whatever structure of yourself that you already have, just how you are, you plug that concept in, the new one that you find so nice and shiny, and then you live. And through period of time, just by living, that concept turns into a building block, into an idea, and that idea begins to have its own shape. And it's not the way you imagine. Like, you think that always speaking the truth is like a nice square. Smells good, wonderful, looks beautiful. I mean, it's shiny, it's pretty, right? And then through lived experience, that idea gets more real, like it gains weight, and it has its own shape. And if you're lucky, if you guess the shape correctly, properly, and you've incorporated it into yourself, wonderful. Then it becomes more real, more weighty, and takes shape. Then you lucked out. However, I don't really know if any of the concepts that I incorporated or somebody else told me, like my parents or teachers, some book somewhere, I take the concept, and through the lived experience, the concept turns into its own shape that it always was, but I didn't know. And unfortunately, some of those concepts, they don't become fully developed until sufficient amount of time. Sometimes takes years, maybe even like 10 years, a decade. And as the idea expands, if the concept that it sits right next to, always telling the truth, always be polite, always be whatever, one shape will end up pushing some other shapes. And it's not a problem if the guess of the shapes was correct, but it is a problem if you didn't guess right and you incorporated other ideas right next to them, because when they expand, you become deformed. You quite literally, the structure of yourself becomes deformed because the ideas expand, become what they really are. And what's interesting, some concepts and some ideas, they are in direct opposition to each other. Like, so you're lucky if being an honest person and being polite, if those two concepts inside yourself can actually coexist and support each other. But boy, it's a problem if they do not connect and then they don't support. Because with the inner monologue also, like, there is another concept, that the ability to, if you think of attention, like, like a little square circle of attention that we seem to have. I know I have it. And lucky for me, I can pick it up as a flashlight and move it around, and I can actually point it inward at myself and examine what kind of a structure I am. And what I'm noticing is that if I look at the base, maybe like towards the beginning of my life, those concepts, they're well inside me. Like, there's nothing I can do to remove them anymore. However, some of those concepts provide hooks, like literally hooks. You have ideas connected to each other, and there is a connection. And the connection, you can hook something else. I know it sounds so cryptic and not exactly grounded, but regardless, there is a cluster of ideas that I found in myself that I don't think I ever actively found them myself and wanted to incorporate them inside my structure, my own self. How did they get there? And what am I talking about? There is that one cluster. The idea is that we're living on a spinning ball in a void of just in nowhere, nothing. And we're spinning and everything. That was one of the concepts that was shoved into me, bribed into me, persuaded into me. And I'm afraid I accepted it. And I held it for many years as a part of myself. But that idea also connects to the other idea and supports the idea that, we have no meaning. We just cosmic accident. that concept was plugged into me also. And I don't know who or when or where, but I know that they were given to me, especially in school, early years in school. They were massaged into me. Maybe through also by watching TV, because those ideas are snuck into you, and they're done cleverly, very well done. You're watching cartoons, they're showing you a spinning ball, and they keep telling you that science knows everything, and you're just a cosmic accident. And there are billions and millions and billions of light years, and it's empty. The universe is empty. So no matter what you do, no matter what actions you take, don't take, how you behave, what you think does not matter. And that cluster of ideas, that you're cosmic nothing, living on a spinning ball, science knows everything, those ideas connect to each other. And what I find very interesting is that those ideas have a property to them. They repel anything that contradicts them. And what is really curious about that is that the idea is able to take over your mouth. For example, you meet somebody and you utter whatever, and it provokes the other person into almost automatic response. For example, we'll live on a spinning ball in the middle of nowhere. There is a group of people who will, because they have that same concept incorporated in them, they don't react violently. They don't say anything because, of course, yeah, everybody knows that. However, there is another group of people who have, I'm assuming the same way, found that that concept was in them. They restructured themselves, taken it out, and replaced it with something like religion. But either way, those two concepts, those two clusters, those ideas repel each other. And the person can actually truly get possessed by that idea, whatever the idea is. If it's religion, then they will say, no, God is in charge, you're a child of God. And yeah. So there is the possession of the ideas that takes place. You know what's funny? As I'm speaking this out, it's by virtue of speaking it out that I'm able to rather observe interesting things, like in real time. Maybe that's why when you're talking to a person and they don't respond positively or, have a normal reaction, it's because it's as if you found, let's say you're walking around on the beach and you found a nice shiny shell concept idea, and you run home all excited, like, yes, I'm gonna show my friend what I found. It's not that you've incorporated that idea inside yourself. You don't even have to believe it. You just wanna show that shell. Sit down and just, take the flashlight of your attention and kind of like look at it. So it's natural, right, to call your friend, somebody you established a relationship that you can talk with them and do so honestly, and they're not going to just say, I don't have time for this. But anyway, right, so you run to them, you're so excited, and you sit down, you bring out the shell, and automatically that person, without even having a look with their attention at it, they respond negatively. It's because the idea that they have incorporated inside their structure is taking over their response. See, ideas are dangerous. Ideas are dangerous, especially if you're not aware how they affect you, that they can take over your mind and your mouth. Interesting. That is interesting. These kind of conversations are just important for no other reason other than simply to do something like this. As you give physicality to these ideas, just by pronouncing them, interesting connections can be made, such as this. Like, it never occurred to me that, you know what, maybe it's the idea that's responding in the other person. Maybe it's not the person themselves. And that leads to the other question, actually. The ability to control your own attention and your own reactions. Like, how many times have I personally done that? A lot. A lot. Sometimes I find that somebody says something, especially if I don't agree with it, that I have almost automatic response. How curious. That means I hold the ideas that are doing Exactly what I just described. They taken over my mouth. Huh. Anyway, that is interesting. That's what I find it interesting. Curious. And so, as the result, the ability to sit down and have a cup of tea or coffee, whatever you like, and just to talk about an idea is difficult. Especially, I can't, like it sounds so stupid. It's always the same, like it's difficult now, but it was better before. It wasn't. It was always the same. I don't think anything like changed specifically about people, but something did snap, like around 2016, or maybe 2018, but I don't know. Anyway, something did snap in people as a group, or collectively, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know what to do with it. I mean, lucky for me that I do have the inner monologue, so I can talk about these things with myself in my own mind. What's it like to have silence inside your mind? That is a curious thing to find out. I mean, I definitely find a lot of things curious, but still, that's one of the more curious things. Silence inside your mind. When you go to sleep, you just go to bed. Nothing to think about, nothing to argue over. Unsettling a little bit, though. Quite a bit unsettling, actually. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this. Just to talk things out as you see them. Anyway,